Listen, if you've crossed 50, you're standing at one of life's most critical crossroads, and most people don't even realize it. You still have time, real, meaningful time, to change the trajectory of your life. But that window is closing faster than you think, and what you do in the next few years will determine whether your later decades are filled with vitality and purpose or regret and decline. I turned 53 when I had my wake-up call. I was sitting in a hospital waiting room at 2 in the morning after my college roommate had a massive stroke. He was 51 years old, and suddenly half his body didn't work anymore. We'd just had lunch 2 weeks earlier where he'd complained about stress at work, about not sleeping well, about how he'd start eating better and exercising after he closed this big deal. After. That word haunted me as I sat there watching his wife try to hold herself together. After never came for him, at least not the way he imagined it would. That night changed everything for me because I realized something terrifying. I was living the exact same way he was. Same excuses, same postponements, same magical thinking that somehow things would just work out if I kept pushing them off. And here's what nobody wants to admit when you're in your 50s. You're not middle-aged anymore, not really. Unless you're planning to live to 110, you've already passed the middle. You're in the third act, and third acts don't last as long as first acts, no matter how much we pretend otherwise. But here's the beautiful, hopeful truth that I want you to understand. 50 is also young enough to completely transform your life. You can rebuild your health, deepen your relationships, find new purpose, and create a completely different future for yourself. I've seen it happen. I've done it myself. But it requires something that gets harder as we age. It requires admitting that the way you've been doing things isn't working and having the courage to change. Let me talk about health first, because this is where the denial runs deepest for people our age. You know those aches and pains you've started accepting as normal? That extra weight you carry and joke about? The medications you've added one by one over the years? The way you get winded doing things that used to be easy? None of that is normal aging. I mean, yes, aging happens, but the decline most people experience is a choice, not a destiny. I met a man named Tom at a gym 3 years ago. He was 62 and looked 45. I asked him his secret, expecting some genetic lottery story. Instead, he told me he'd been overweight, pre-diabetic, and on 5 different medications at age 54. His doctor told him he was heading for a heart attack within 5 years if nothing changed. So Tom changed everything. He started walking every day, then jogging, then running. He cleaned up his diet, not with some fad approach, but by actually learning what his body needed. 8 years later, he's on 0 medications, runs marathons, and has more energy than he did at 35. The same doctors who warned him about heart disease now use him as an example of what's possible. What struck me about Tom's story wasn't that it was miraculous, it was that it was actually pretty straightforward. He didn't do anything extreme or expensive. He just consistently did the basics that all of us know we should be doing, but convince ourselves don't matter that much. And here's the thing about your 50s. Your body is still resilient enough to respond dramatically to positive changes. Start taking care of yourself now, and you can add decades of quality life. Wait until your 60s or 70s, and you're playing defense, trying to manage decline rather than building vitality. The math is simple but sobering. If you're 55 and you live to 80, you have 25 years left. But how many of those years will be healthy, active, independent years? For most people who don't make changes, maybe 10 or 15 good years, then a slow decline into dependence and limitation. But if you invest in your health now, you could have 20 or even all 25 of those years be genuinely good ones. The return on investment for taking care of your body in your 50s is astronomical. Then there's the relationship dimension, which gets complicated in ways you probably never expected when you were younger. If you're married, your 50s are when you either reconnect with your partner or drift into being roommates who share expenses. I've watched this happen to so many couples. The kids leave home and suddenly you're facing each other across the dinner table, realizing you've become strangers. You built your whole life around raising children, and now that job is done, and you have no idea how to relate to each other anymore. My wife and I hit this wall hard at 52 and 50. Our youngest had just left for college, and we found ourselves in this big, quiet house with nothing to talk about except logistics. It was terrifying. But we made a decision that saved our marriage. We started dating again. Literally dating, like we did 30 years earlier. We set aside time every week to go out, just the two of us, phones off, and we had to talk about something other than kids or bills or home repairs. Those first few dates were awkward as hell. We'd forgotten how to just enjoy each other's company. But slowly, we remembered who we fell in love with, and we discovered who we'd both become. Now, at 58 and 56, we're closer than we've been in 20 years. If you're single in your 50s, there's a different challenge. Maybe you're divorced, widowed, or never married. There's this temptation to just accept being alone, to think that part of your life is over. I've seen too many people make that choice and then spend their 60s and 70s in profound loneliness. Human beings need connection at every age. The form it takes might change, but the need doesn't. Whether it's romantic relationships, deep friendships, or community involvement, your 50s are when you need to actively invest in building the social connections that will sustain you as you age. I know a woman named Margaret who lost her husband at 53. She told me she spent the first year in grief, which was necessary and right. But then she made a conscious choice to build a new life. She joined groups, took classes, volunteered, pushed herself to say yes to social invitations even when she wanted to stay home. She's 60 now and has a circle of friends she calls her chosen family. She's also in a relationship with a wonderful man she met at a cooking class. She said the key was refusing to let fear of rejection or failure keep her from trying. Purpose is another thing that becomes critical in your 50s. For most of your adult life, your purpose was probably defined by your role, parent, employee, provider. But in your 50s, those roles start shifting. Kids become independent. Your career might plateau or feel less satisfying. You start asking yourself the uncomfortable question, what's this all for? What am I actually building toward? This is where a lot of people our age get stuck in what I call the waiting room mentality. They're just waiting for retirement, waiting for grandkids, waiting for life to tell them what comes next. But life doesn't work that way. Purpose isn't something that happens to you. It's something you create. And your 50s are the perfect time to figure out what genuinely matters to you, not what you were told should matter, but what actually lights you up inside. I spent 30 years in corporate sales, and I was good at it. Made good money, got promotions, checked all the boxes. But at 55, I realized I didn't care about it anymore. It felt hollow. So I started volunteering as a mentor for young entrepreneurs, just a few hours a week at first. That turned into consulting work, which turned into me starting a small coaching practice. I make a fraction of what I used to make, but I wake up excited about my work in a way I haven't felt in decades. I'm helping people build something real, and that matters to me. The financial piece can't be ignored either, and this is where brutal honesty is required. If you're 50 and haven't saved much for retirement, you need to confront that reality now, not at 65 when your options are limited. You still have 15 to 20 working years to course correct, but you can't waste them. On the flip side, if you've saved well, you need to think about what that money is actually for. I know too many people who save obsessively and then die with full bank accounts and empty experience banks. Money in your 50s should serve your life, not run it. Yes, be responsible and plan for the future, but also recognize that experiences and relationships are investments too. That trip you've been postponing? Take it. The hobby you've always wanted to try? Start it. The time you wish you could spend with aging parents or growing grandchildren? Make it happen. You can't take your 401k with you, but you can take your memories and relationships. Here's what I've learned talking to people in their 70s and 80s. Nobody wishes they'd worked more, saved more, or played it safer. They wish they'd loved harder, tried more things, taken better care of themselves, and prioritized the people who mattered. Your 50s are your last clear chance to avoid those regrets. The hard truth is that every year after 50, change gets a little harder. Your body becomes less adaptable. Your habits become more entrenched. Your energy decreases. Your time horizon shortens. This isn't pessimism, it's reality, but it's also motivation. If you've been coasting, hoping things will just work out, this is your wake-up call. If you've been postponing the life you really want to live, waiting for the perfect time, this is it. This is the perfect time because it's the time you actually have. I'm not saying you need to blow up your entire life or make radical changes overnight, but you do need to start being intentional. Look at your health, your relationships, your purpose, your use of time, and ask yourself honestly, is this leading where I want to go? Because where you are at 65, 70, 80, that's being determined by what you do right now, today, this year. If you're over 50, this message is for you. You're not done. You're not over the hill. You're not just killing time until retirement or decline. You're at a point where you have enough experience to know what matters and enough time left to do something about it. Don't waste it. Don't wait. Don't assume tomorrow is guaranteed. The best years of your life can still be ahead of you, but only if you're willing to build them starting now.